everybody, Biking Sean here. I've been getting some questions on flippers recently, particularly on the video for the Brad Southard flipper. I've had some questions about how's the action on the flipper, how does it compare in smoothness to some other knives, and I thought I could answer some of those questions for you on this video. I do have a fair number of flippers. I've had others over time. You may notice, if you're familiar with my channel, that the Zero Tolerance 561 is no longer here. I did decide to get rid of that knife. Just wasn't really using it a lot, and since I got the Brad Southard, it's kind of been replaced. But I still have a fair number to compare it to, and let's just start with bearing systems, because bearing systems are used commonly in flippers. All of these knives along the top use some kind of bearing system. These three have IKBS, and these three have some sort of a thrust bearing system, KBT, some other kind of closed bearing system. But they all use bearings. These three down here do not use a bearing system. They just rely on washers. Now, is that important? Not necessarily. For example, the CRKT Shenanigan is an excellent flipper. I mean, it comes out every single time and requires very little effort, no wrist at all, and it's just great. It's really smooth. And it's also a very inexpensive knife. So this is a great value for a flipper. And I did a review on it, and you can even see a takedown that shows you the insides, and it's really just well built and runs on phosphorus bronze washers, and it just works really nicely. Now, one thing that helps with a flipper is liner locks are typically going to have a little bit better flipping action, just because you don't have the chance of your fingers pressing against this lock bar and putting extra drag on the blade. So this one, the Kershaw Zing, is also a liner lock, and again, it does not have a bearing system, but it is also a great flipper, just because of the way that it's built, the geometry of the flipper, and the fact that it's a liner lock. It just all comes together to make a nice flipper. And of course, this is an R.J. Martin design, and he is known for his custom flippers, which are just incredible. Hopefully I'll have a chance to add one of those to my collection at some point. The bearing systems, such as IKBS that's used in this Dust and Chirpin Logic, are great, and they really do make the knife super quick and smooth to deploy. Also, another thing that I like about bearing systems are that they really make the knife seem pretty rock solid. You very seldomly have any kind of side-to-side play with a bearing system, and I think it's just the nature of the bearings and the way that they act around the pivot and in the space to just create a very solid platform for the blade. Another important factor with flippers is the detent. You need a nice crisp detent in order to get the knife to deploy fully and quickly. So, the Brad Southard has a perfect detent, I think, and it just makes it come out very well. You can still open it with your thumb slowly if you want to, but it does have a nice solid detent. This Surefire Charlie that was modified by Tough Thumbs, it did not have a bearing system, and it doesn't have the strongest detent. So you kind of do have to give this a little bit of wrist action in order to get it to deploy, and if you don't, it's very difficult to get it to fully deploy. I mean, I can do it there, but it takes a decent amount of effort. That's kind of fairly common for this knife, unfortunately. Still a great knife, and I do like it a lot, but you know, that's just the way that this one is. The Kershaw Tilt is another awesome flipper that uses the KVT system, and it's very similar to the 560 and 561. But another thing that I really like about this knife compared to those are the ergonomics. And it's basically the beveled edges here, the back of the blade along the spine. This is basically the opposite of a 560 or 561, where they have, you know, a lot of hard cut jimping right here. This one's, you know, completely smooth. But for me, in an EDC type of roll, this gives me plenty of security in the grip that I don't need a ton of extra jimping up here, or any jimping at all. You know, same thing with this Turpin Logic. It's perfectly smooth here. It's really, there's no jimping at all. None on the flipper, and just, you know, the way that it's designed, you know, it's perfect. Now it does have some jimping here, but you know, nothing that is interfering with this flipping part. Something like this Crkt Ripple has a pretty hard cut jimping along the flipper here, and that can kind of aggravate your forefinger just after a couple of flips. You know, it's kind of uncomfortable, and maybe it's more necessary because this one has a little bit of a smaller flipper, so I can kind of see that, but you know, unfortunately that one's just not as comfortable. The way that they did it on the Microtech Whale Shark is a pretty good compromise. Has a little bit of jimping. Same thing with this Kershaw, the Zing. You know, they have some jimping, but it's not overly aggressive, and it's still very comfortable and ergonomic. Finally, one of the characteristics about a flipper that I really enjoy is the integrated finger guard that you get. Just a little bit of extra security for this finger with the flipper when it's open. So anyway, those are the flippers. I hope that this video was somewhat informative, and you know, let me know if you have any other questions in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.